referral this month. One more and she'd get a written reprimand. Absolutely. Please hold. Hannah pressed the button on her headset, suspending the call. She hadn't even had a chance. Miss Fairbanks had been on hold for 37 minutes before she'd ever gotten to Hannah's line, which meant that she'd had an extra 37 minutes to stew in her distress. The distress being that her surround sound was fucked up, but she thought it was the television. Hannah had tried to talk her through resetting the system, but it hadn't worked. 9 times out of 10, it was user error, but the user wanted very badly to yell at someone for it. Enter Hannah. For 8 hours a day, she took calls from people who couldn't get their shit to work. She'd run through the troubleshooting script so many times, she could program televisions in her sleep in 4 different languages. But that didn't mean the person on the other end had to listen to her, or be nice to her, or even kind of respect her. And Hannah was fine with that. Mostly. Respect wasn't something she expected from faceless strangers. She couldn't say the same for her coworkers. They always took being bitched at so personally. Hannah didn't give a shit. And she wasn't paid to give a shit. Speaking of, I have a request for a supervisor, she spoke into the headset. Colin swore under his breath before taking the call. See, Colin did get paid to give a shit, so he was usually pretty pissed off. Part of her sympathized with him, but that's why he made the big bucks, and she made minimum wage. Hannah glanced up in time to see the time clock hit the 15 after mark, and she logged out. Some people stayed late, super late, trying to hit numbers and reach records that might reward them with a gift card to a sports bar downtown, or a plaque with their name on it in the break room. Some were working their way up to middle management so as to leverage the promotion and get hired out of the cesspool that was Superior Electronics, Inc. Not Hannah, though. Nope. She was more than content working in the customer service call center of the mediocre television manufacturer. They didn't suck, and she couldn't really ask for much else. She had wanted a job where she could be invisible but productive and leave at the same time every day. It wasn't food service, and she didn't have to interact with people face-to-face too often. She was paid on time, and she could leave work at work, instead of it being her entire life. Though she knew she'd lucked out with her locked-in schedule. She had heard what her coworkers whispered about her. Having a consistent daytime shift when the others had to rotate meant they assumed she'd slept with someone at the top somewhere to get what she wanted. Which, hilarious. Hannah had no issue being labeled the office slut, so long as it meant they left her alone, and no one tried to be her friend. Though she often wondered what it would be like to sit with her coworkers and swapped best and worst call stories, talk about their day, share personal information about their lives. But it was too risky. She couldn't make any close connections for 2 main reasons. First, she'd have to lie, and no healthy relationship could be established, let alone survive, without honesty. Second, telling the truth would be the kind of distraction that could harm Piper, and protecting Piper was rule number 1. Hey, Hannah. She nodded at TJ as she slid on her generic black coat and buttoned it up to the top. Do you have plans for lunch tomorrow? I was thinking of going over to Wild Pub. Would... TJ cleared his throat and shifted on his feet. Would you like to join me? The question came out like a squeak. Hannah pulled her knit cap over her head, covering most of her long dark hair, the rest of it tucked inside her coat. She didn't know TJ outside of the fact that his cubicle was 2 down from hers, and he sometimes smelled of cigarettes. She suspected he only smoked when nervous, because she could smell it now. Ah, vices. Everyone had them, but no one talked about them. A person's private shame. She could relate. She slung her bag over her shoulder. Not a purse, more of a cross between a messenger bag and a small backpack, and secured it to her person as she contemplated how best to decline his invite. I appreciate the offer, she said quietly with a small half-smile. Maybe some other time? But probably never, she added internally. Oh. TJ shifted, not sure how to proceed. Had that been mean? Hannah replayed her response again.